Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Scrambled Jakes. If you're looking for a new way to start your workday, boy, bypass the big national chains and grab way better food at Scrambled Jakes. Dine in or carry it out to your home or your office. Coffee or brunch drinks, giant cinnamon rolls. There's no better place to start off your weekday than Scrambled Jakes Breakfast Company. ScrambledJakes.com to learn more. Right out in Rocky Hill in West Knoxville. Tremendous place. If you've never been, you have to check it out. Scrambled Jakes. All right. The coaching staff continues to say the right things about the team's energy and effort. That is a good thing. But Will, I'll start with you. I wonder how much of all the negative headlines around this team and around this program are a concern in terms of seeping into the team's psyche. NCAA cloud overhead, recruiting isn't going well, 4 freshmen arrested and suspended, another player arrested for abusing a kitten. A story comes up last week about last year. The cops don't have the evidence to prove it, but they believe one player on the team shot another player on the team in a club. Not exactly great headlines at the moment for Tennessee. I know that impacts us, the media, that impacts fans' view of things. Does Heupel have to worry about that seeping into his team's psyche, or is that sort of a closed-off bunch? You have to worry about it?
No, you got to worry about it just because there's so much going on. There's so much looseness, as you call it, of just out of control, crazy thing here, what's going on there. I mean, it's hard not to say, that there wouldn't be other things going on in the locker room that are just as crazy of how are people interacting with each other if it's kind of like that. So I think you've got some issues. You've got the issues of this then going out into the recruiting world and a mom and dad going, man, do I want to send my kid there? I mean, they got the arrested here, abusing pets. I mean, it just is not all around. It's something you have to work on, and it's probably something you have to eventually work on as your Heupel and this years go. There are a few guys, I don't care how talented they are, they need to head to different pastures. Right? They're just not going to work. They're always going to be a problem. And I think that's part of this coaching staff is going to have to find is who those people are.
And that's an interesting point right there because typically new coach comes in, they turn the screws. They make it hard as hell and they try and drive off the guys who don't fit their scheme. Pat Ryan had the great quote about when Johnny Majors came in here, it was the baton death march. You want to weed them out. Heupel isn't able to do that. They don't have the roster to be able to run people off. So you're having to maybe put up with more behind the scenes. Are you guys concerned that this could seep in? I mean, I could look at this and say, well, it's year one, so they're going to be more likely to buy in. At the same time, this is Tennessee where you've had so many coaching changes. The fact that it's year one may make somebody more likely to buy out, if you will. Are you concerned about some of this nonsense affecting the energy levels, affecting the attitude?
I think they're maybe more fragile to begin with because of all the losing and the transition. So sure, that some guys, some individuals, maybe that would be more of an issue to get in their mind and keep them from developing. But I think there's so many other issues that I think are larger for them. You mentioned recruiting. I think the negative recruiting continues to pile on what you can use against Tennessee. And we haven't seen a commitment from Josh Heupel yet. Doesn't mean they're not working on it, but that is something that has to start to cash in. But I still think that the roster and some of the other issues are bigger. And that's another reason why Josh Heupel has worked on trying to build those relationships and doing some of those right things because he knows everything that a lot of these players have been in, and maybe you can get more out of them. Learning how to win, he's talked about that. That's hard until you do win, especially with some of this adversity.
And John, I remember kind of like back in our day, wasn't the term kind of like a knucklehead, or how many knuckleheads do you have on this team? How many? And I think at least this time around, don't you have a pretty good senior class? Don't you at least have some seniors that you hope you have a lot more players doing the right things? You kind of draw a line in the sand and say, we're not going to tolerate this continue. I'm more concerned about putting a stop to it and not having it go on. And don't forget, you've got the Wade twins, right? Yeah. Going to make a big recruiting announcement Friday. If they come to Tennessee, then maybe you can start that's some momentum. But for the psyche of the team right now, no, unless you've got a widespread problem.
Yeah, and I'm not so much worried about their off-field antics as I am the losing plays into it. Another coaching change plays into it. Now all the negative headlines play into it. I could just see right now they're showing energy, and Theo Jackson came out this week and said, "Oh, it's a different energy over here now. We got music, at
Ice cream
practice."
truck.
Yeah, got music at practice. That's that's
Yeah,
depending on the last coach you just fired, that's either a great thing or a terrible thing.
What-
But I just think at some point, if the music at practice is making a difference, how many more bad headlines until the music no longer makes a
Yeah,
difference?
really.
That's my concern. Is you don't want the fan base is kind of at blah stage. You don't want the players to ever reach blah stage because that's awfully hard to get them out of that.
And I also would worry about what happens if you fall behind 14-0 and you go 3 and out and the other team scores again
Oh, well,
and your
yeah.
defense is right back out on the field.
I mean, yeah, I'm talking about right now.
Yeah.
Once you get into the season and you're 4-4 or something, I don't know what they're, or worse.
The
Who knows?
players said the right thing in talking about accountability,
Yeah.
all the time. So if that's the case, then that locker room leadership is what you want. You want that kind of response, but we'll see if that's really the case.
Where does the locker room leadership come from? Because as soon as last year ended, all the stories came from the guys inside saying, "Well, we didn't have great leadership."
Yeah.
A lot of those leaders from 2 years ago were the end of the Butch Jones guys that left, and you didn't really replace them last year. Was that in part due to COVID and the weird year, and you didn't have a normal team building?
And even though Alante Taylor stayed, remember he said every player on the team thought about transferring. That's not a good sign.
When we come back, let's talk about Josh Heupel's offense. The coach at another SEC school went up against Art Briles' defense, went up against Art Briles' offense when he was at Baylor. That's what Heupel runs. We'll tell you what he said about why it makes defenses struggle so, and then we'll tell you something that came out of UCF that replaced Heupel, the good and the bad in this offense. Come on back on the Sports.